everyone, welcome back to the Independent Thinking Online Children's Book Festival that we're doing in partnership with the Sue Atkins Book Club. Sue Atkins, some of you may have seen on the telly as the parent coach. And a lot of these books are aimed at parents, but they're also, which is why I'm interested, really good for teachers as well, let alone teachers who are parents. And I've had a fascinating time interviewing over 40 authors with 40 very, very different sorts of books. Some books for children, some for little children, some for older children, some books about children, about how to get the best out of children. And I'm joined today by Henrietta Mackenzie. I was about to reach for a copy of the book because normally I've been sort of waving people's books around, but I've only got it as a PDF at the moment. So, but I will catch up with it at some point as the physical book because the illustrations look beautiful on the version that I've got. So I'm here with Henrietta Mackenzie, and I'd like to talk to her about her book, The Secret Lives of Two Googly-Eyed Cats, and the amazing illustrations and exciting adventure they go on, and the reason behind it. So Henrietta, welcome to the festival, and tell people a little bit about yourself, how you got into writing, what you do, what the book's about.
Oh, thank you, Ian, and thank you so much for letting me be part of this great festival. For starters, I'll just show you the front cover of the book, because I know obviously you don't have a physical copy. So this is just the Secret Lives of Two Googly-Eyed Cats, which I wrote a couple of years ago and was published early this year. It was actually written in support of Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is where my daughter Penny is an outpatient. And I mean, my journey began really when my daughter was born, which was nearly 4 years ago. So at 1 week old, she developed like a potentially quite dangerous condition on her face and around her airways called segmental hemangioma. It's a bit of a mouthful. And this is basically an overgrowth of blood vessels that formed a red mark and swelling. And we had a couple of weeks of doctor's appointments. And then we were referred to Great Ormond Street Hospital, where she was diagnosed. And then for the first 2 years of her life, she was on medication, which disrupted her sleep patterns. And I was up many, many times every night, more so, I think, than my peers. And I used storytelling really to help Penny get back to sleep. And even though at quite a young age, she didn't know words, it just sort of helped. And I used her two soft toy cats, Millie and Tilly, who are the protagonists in the story. I used stories about them to soothe her and try and get her back to sleep. And it quite often worked. And then, 2 years of storytelling, there was a lot of stories that were developed. And so I just started to write them down during my maternity leave while Penny was napping, while my parents were looking after her. And it really sort of started from there. And I mean, my background is PR marketing. So I write as part of my job, but not children's literature. And I think being a mother, then I suddenly became immersed in sort of children's stories, children's TV, and got a real feel for, the types of characters that work, what children like to engage with, what sort of writing styles, etc. And I became, fascinated by the sector. And I thought I'd put my stories down and see what happens. And actually, the story is interesting. It follows Millie and Tilly, obviously, who I call the Googly-Eyed Cats, because they basically have, like you can see here, sort of very big kind of googly eyes. And the real cats are actually slightly less cat-like than these, but they've got these sort of massive eyes. And they belong to a cheeky little baby called Penny in the story. And actually in the story, I have drawn in Penny's, got Penny's skin condition drawn in, you can see. So she's got the redness around her face. So I didn't do the illustrations. I unfortunately can't draw. So the story is about these two toy cats that sit on the mat during the day playing games, Penny playing games with them, acting like normal toys. And then at night they go out, they creep out the back door in search of fun and adventure. They ransack bins, scrap with other cats, and kind of generally cause mischief. And I think I've always been quite intrigued about, when I go to sleep when I was younger, would my toys come to life? Would they go out? Would they cause trouble? And I think sort of that, childhood sort of imaginative thinking was kind of underpinned this story, I think. And that's kind of how the storytelling came about. And what I think is quite interesting is, so I've spoken to quite a lot of mums who've read this story to children, and they've got quite fun feedback in terms of there's been requests for people to have cats. Kids have been wondering, do their cats go outside and cause all this kind of mischief, etc. And there's also a dog character as well, who's inspired by our neighbour's dog, Nala, which is a Bernese mountain dog, and who's the kind of saviour of the day. And some children have been fascinated by the dog, so it's quite interesting. But ultimately, this story was created to raise money for Great Ormond Street Hospital. So I'm right. I published this in support of them. They've done such an amazing job looking after my daughter, and she's got kind of a handful more years of treatment to go. But I just wanted to basically do something nice and give back to them.
Yeah, no, it's nice. A few of the authors have been in similar situations in terms of having an illness or an issue to deal with, and had support. So a couple of them have sort of had support from CAMS in terms of mental health, and then the book has then they've contributed money from the book back into the charity as their way of helping, of thanking the charity for the support they've given, or for the professionals for the support that they've received. So your daughter's still receiving treatment, but she's okay?
Yes, so she's off medication. She now sleeps through the night, which is, an absolute game changer. So I've got 2 years worth of stories kind of banked up from being up all night to now write up. And she's at a moment just faced with probably some operations to get rid of the redness on her face, and then her lower lip potentially needs some plastic surgery when she's older. Okay,
how old is she now?
Yeah, she's nearly 4.
4. And does she see herself in the book when you read her that book? You recognise herself?
I think so. So I've read it to her a handful of times, and like, Penny, that's you, and this is Millie and Tilly, and she's like, oh, okay. So she's sort of getting her head around that she's in the book. But I gifted a copy to her nursery actually, and so they've read it quite a few times at story time, and then some of her friends at nursery have also got the book as well. So I think she's sort of kind of intrigued about the fact that she's in the book.
Yeah, it's nice that you put her facial features in as well. It's very subtle, but it's there, and that's been another feature in some of the books we've seen, where children are finding themselves represented in books in a way that wasn't happening before. Whether it's a sort of the facial discoloration, or whether it's there's one where the child's walking with on crutches, but they don't make a big thing of it, and you don't make a thing of it in your book. It's just there. So increasingly allowing children to see books in which they are, or people like them are represented, I think is a really powerful thing that authors like you can do for children. It's that's one of the things that I'm picking up through these various conversations with authors, and it's great to see. So I hope your daughter will continue to appreciate that.
If they do. Yes, you're right. These are like physical disabilities, and we need to show that actually, it is okay to have them, and you can have a seemingly normal life, and you don't need to look perfect. So I think it's really important that these are highlighted. I mean, there's just such kind of informative years for children, and so now is the time they need to be learning that it's okay to be slightly different.
And the difference isn't the thing. Sometimes the storybooks, you turn the difference into the thing that the book's about, but there's a subtlety to it. It's just there. Don't make a big thing of it. It's just there. It's just who people are. We're all different. No, I like that. And does Great Ormond Street have a copy?
I sent them a handful of copies. Yes.
Yeah, yes. That's good. So would you like to read us a little bit? Give us a little flavour for the 2 Googly-Eyed cats?
So my book is in rhyming style, which actually I had a go at writing in prose as well. Actually, what I do is I quite like to. I'm actually a musician. I was at university, and so I write into thinking about it as like lyrics of a song and a beat, and I think that's a really sort of my preferred style. So it's very sort of like succinct and catchy, and I find that it really engages children much more. So I'll just read you a couple of extracts in the beginning. Millie and Tilly are googly-eyed cats. They belong to Penny and live on her mat. During the day, they act like toys, meowing about with gusto and poise. There they are, meowing about.
Lift it up a little bit. Bit more. There we go. Yeah.
But during the night, they like to sneak out for fun and games while no one's about. And here we have them sneaking out the back door.
Big eyes.
Yes, lots of big eyes. Ransacking bins and scrapping with the cats. Their naughty antics are far from the mat. Burgling houses and stealing their meat, from fish to chicken, such a feast to eat. Yeah. Actually, that's inspired from my cat when I was about 10. She basically in the middle of the night went and stole some chicken from the neighbours. I came back in with a massive piece of chicken, or maybe it was something like that, but quite obviously stolen from someone's kitchen. And we were like, where on earth did you get that from? So I think that sort of childhood memory just popped in. I thought, I'll add that in, because that actually happens.
Yeah, true story. There are worse things that cats can bring through the door, to be honest.
Oh, we've had them as well, all sorts of dead things or half-eaten things, and it's just disgusting. They're quite unscrupulous at times.
This idea about the secret lives of the cats, I think, is quite interesting. I could see like a teacher using this in a classroom situation. I don't know if you've got experience of whether teachers have used it in a classroom situation, but the creative writing and the fantasy idea of what do your toys, like you said, get up to when you're not in the room. What do your cats do at night? What does the dog do when it's, I don't know, when you can't see it? I think those sorts of things are a real opportunity for creativity.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I did a Microsoft Teams session with the school. I think they were around sort of 9-10-year-olds for this book is actually aimed at 2 to 5-year-olds. But I did the session with them. It was a kind of a Q&A session talking for their creative writing class. And they were asking me lots of questions about how do you come up with the ideas, what inspires you, like how do you write a book, etc. And so I sort of talked through my journey there to help them, understand like what I and other authors put together stories to sort of help them with their journey. And quite often it is sort of like memories, childhood memories, for example, which underpin a lot of your sort of, it will provide that kind of creative stimulation for the storytelling.
And do other parents that because this idea about creating stories that you read to your children that then take a life of their own, I mean, that's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang started off as Ian Fleming telling stories, and Starlight Express, the musical, started off as stories that the parent had in their head that then took a life of their own. So are other parents interested in that and start thinking about their own stories that they tell?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, I've now sort of, as soon as I started, when I published this, I suddenly realized there were so many parents out there, and also like parents who are teachers, who had so many stories in their head. And they're like, I've always been meaning to write my stories down, or I've started writing them, I don't know how to finish them, I don't know what to do with them next. So I think everybody, certainly every parent has got a story in them that they've been telling or want to tell. So, I've had so many conversations about helping people. How do you put your story down on paper? What do you do with it next? What's the style you're trying to create to use? But more importantly, what are the messages you're trying to communicate as well? And certainly in this book, the kind of core messages are, I think, kindness, which is very important, as you know, for children to learn at this age. So in that, this seemingly scary dog rescues the cat from the snow because they get stuck in it on one of their kind of nights of mischief. And then also kind of creativity and being courageous as well. And those sort of underlying messages. So I think that's kind of really quite important. I sort of retrofitted my messages into my story, which is probably not the right way, in that the story just sort of flowed out. And then I was like, what messages am I trying to portray? And I was like, yeah, what messages am I? But actually now thinking about the kind of follow-up books, I've now been thinking, actually, no, I know exactly what messages I want the children to portray. So that sort of shaped the narrative, like right from the get-go.
I mean, you mentioned the neighbours. Can you show the camera the neighbour's dog, because it's got such a distinctive face?
Yeah. So this is the dog here, and my brief to the illustrator was, please create me a dog that's somewhere between an Alsatian and a Bernese Mountain Dog. And then they created the illustration, and I realized, it's our neighbour's dog. So subconsciously I had basically modelled that dog character on the dog that we walk. It was quite interesting.
Well,
so
I like this. I like the bit as well, they're scared of the dog, and it looks, there's an element that it's hard to tell whether it's smiling or sort of looking a bit fierce, that dog, but it does rescue them. And I'm trying to think, is another message in there about facing your fears, and not everything that looks scary is scary and that sort of stuff as well. And like you say, kindness, I could see that being part of it as well.
I mean, potentially you don't take people on face value, you know, where you don't judge people on, you know, what you perceive and first time you meet someone, for example, you know, whatever sort of way they portray themselves, is it maybe a matter of, you know, you need to kind of get to know somebody and appreciate their sort of full value to really, you know, make a judgment on someone's character, etc. So it could be a sort of hidden message around there.
Don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a dog by its collar, or whatever. Yeah.
Judge a dog by its collar. Nice. There you go. That could be another book, couldn't it?
In the nursery, I'm thinking about, again, with the sort of the coloration around your daughter's face, and then that being represented in the book. Do the children sort of link the two together? How do they respond to that? Because children on the whole don't see difference. They don't see any of those sorts of things. They sort of pick that up as they go later on. So how are children responding to that?
I think that they're all like 3, 4 in her age group. So I think they are a bit young to sort of realise, but also that the other day Penny did sort of comment on the fact because she's still got kind of redness around here and a little bit around her ear, and she did comment on it. So I think she's just reaching the age where she's realising, you know, what she looks like. I don't think there's been sort of comment in terms of children noticing redness on her face, or you know, the sort of physical difference in the book yet. I think that will come potentially in the next couple of years. So mostly the children are very sort of dazzled by the cats and the dog.
They are very dazzling illustrations. Of all the books that I've looked at, they're some of the strongest, I think. Although the big eyes, clearly the big googly eyes.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can't take credit for any of that apart from the creative direction.
I was going to say, it's the illustration, because one of the authors talked about that her illustrator could see in her head. And what the illustrator produced, even though I think she was in Poland, I think when she was doing it, was exactly what the author could see. So, were you surprised by the illustrations, or was it like, yep, that's how I envisaged it?
It was a journey. So I have experience of working with like designers and illustrators through my work anyway. So I'm used to designing, kind of putting together creative briefs. I think for this particular one, it was a journey. So I sort of drew what I thought they should look like, but my version was a bit more like Garfield than these lovely ones. Yeah, and then I can't really draw dogs at all. So I think then through our sort of various iterations, they then it morphed into quite, you know, these googly-eyed cats. So I think I didn't have that idea in my head when I sat down and thought about it, which I think is probably harder for an illustrator to you know, capture your exact sort of you know, requirements. So it took a bit longer, but then I think now for the next, I do have a second book I've written, I would know exactly what each illustration should look like. Yeah,
it's a distinctive style. And the scene where the Penny is biting the cat's tail, is that another true story?
Not a real cat, but she has bitten, let me get the page, of a kind of fake cats, you know, her soft toy cats, and there we are there. So yeah, biting it, swinging it around, biting it. So thankfully not a real one, because I think we'd probably end up with a few scratches. So but yes, she's quite kind of she's very sort of caring of her toys, but I think they do get kind of flung around a bit sometimes as well.
So where can people find out? So I know like through the Roving Bookshop, who we're working with for the festival to make as many of the books available as possible. So your book's available with them, but also who's your publisher?
So I've published with Austin Macaulay, who are a hybrid publisher. So you can actually go onto their website and find my book there, or Amazon. And then the best way to contact really is actually through my Instagram account, where it also links to all my book details, which is eco-friendly Henry with an I. So another string to my bow is so eco-friendly Henry, HENRI. So another string to my bow is I'm a sustainability influencer. So kind of climate change, writing about climate change is something I do as well in my spare time. So actually I'm in the middle of a book about teaching young children about climate change.
And is that a storybook, or is that more of a factual book?
It's more factual, actually. But then I have written a sequel to The Cats, which has got an underlying climate, a sort of recycling message in as well. So I think ongoing, all books will have a kind of underlying climate change message, which is such an important subject to champion.
That's massive. Yeah, no, I look forward to reading those and championing that as well, as much as we possibly can, because it is such an important message. And I think children can influence parents in decisions as well, and make them feel guilty for not recycling or for buying so much plastic or whatever it might be. So let's get the children on board straight away.
Well, absolutely. We've basically got sort of only a matter of decades to make change, to reverse climate change, and really they're the generation who are growing up and really need to right from an early age be adopting a sustainable behaviour. So they're absolutely critical. So yeah, that's something I feel very, very passionately about.
Very good. Right, so much there. Henrietta, thank you ever so much. The Secret Lives of the Two Googly-Eyed Cats. Get it for the illustrations as well as the story and the rhyme and the rhythm.
Here it is again.
And the good cause that it's contributing to. So thank you for your time, Henrietta. Good luck with it all.
Thank you very much for having me, Ian.